There's a good possibility that a lot of you guys watching this are just like me in that you're low-key obsessed with 3D printed firearms. Maybe you're full-blown obsessed and not just low-key about it. This is my foray into the whole genre. I designed this stock for this 1022 pistol. This rainbow colored red and orange part right here is the legal firearm, and I was allowed to print that by US law. And you can see that this carrier here is an all new component. I've never shown it on camera before, and it's never been in any configuration other than a pistol. So this is a legal thing for me to have done, and I'm not a lawyer. So as far as I understand it, I'm perfectly legal to share these files as well, but I don't. And we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But yeah, let me show you guys a scene from this video here where it was an hour-long video and I thoroughly documented all the steps that I went through to come up with this design. So if you guys are curious, my engineering exercise there, yeah, check out the video. It was pretty interesting. Not a bad bit of functionality. And this is just a 1022, you guys. Technically, there are smaller caliber rifles or pistols available, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find them. So why do I own guns? This soundbite from Dr. Jordan Peterson sums it up perfectly.
Like, a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control.
A harmless man is not a good man. If you are a victim, if you have no ability to do bad things, that doesn't mean that you're good. It just means that you are ineffective. Okay? So a good man is a dangerous man who doesn't use his danger for bad purposes. So the question is, am I a dangerous man? Well, one answer to that is, can I beat you up? Right? And the answer is probably not. I'm not a physically imposing man. I do not have stature as one of my attributes. And wow, until recently in our species, your physical size was all that mattered. I was watching a recent interview with Mike Tyson talking gently. He was dancing around the issue, but he was like, if you're smaller than me, you can't beat me physically. It doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how old I am. You know, even if he's 60 years old, he's still going to beat you because he's Mike Tyson. He's just enormous. And wow, even in the era of swords, being physically larger still mattered a lot, being able to overpower your opponent physically. But now we have the great equalizer, which is what firearms have been labeled as before. And so small stature men can now have the ability to kill another man with just a finger. And that, scary as it sounds, is a very good thing because it prevents the largest a-hole in the arena from being the most powerful. So it's a pathway to despotism to have the largest man with the singular power. He kind of has a monopoly on being physically the strongest, and he would tend to be dominant, which meant that he got to be the leader. Whatever he wanted to do, he could do, and that's no way for a society to function. So by evening the playing field, we have made the world a better place. And the founding fathers of the United States of America knew this to be true, which is why it's built into our Constitution that we have a right to have weapons which make us dangerous. Now, if you could go back in time and show this video that I'm making right here to my 20-year-old self, I would be horrified to see my gray-bearded persona espousing the virtues of firearm ownership. I've said it in the past, I come from a very liberal place. And for the majority of my life, I've been under the opinion that guns are kind of stupid, which is a hypocritical statement because since I was able to own a firearm, I've pretty much owned one. Now, the liberals of today are not liberal. These people are trying to take over and impose their will upon society. They are removing freedom. Liberal means freedom, liberate. And they are removing freedoms in the name of the common good. And I have a servant's heart. I absolutely support the common good along with rule of law. But it seems to me that they take offense at people just because they are dangerous. And they want to take away your power, take away your danger from you because it threatens them, because they aren't as dangerous. So here's a meme that I saw today. Look at how his front hand is holding the weapon. He's likely going to jostle that magazine, and he might get some misfed rounds into the chamber there. He's clearly a civilian that has found a good use for weapons in defending his country. Now, it's unlikely that Canada is going to roll across our border and try to take over the United States, and us brave Americans are going to have to defend against the evil Canadians. So if you're an American like me, this is most likely a theoretical exercise, and it's highly likely to remain a theoretical exercise into the foreseeable future for quite many generations to come. Potentially speaking, the people who want to take control for no good reason, because they think they should be in control, might organize some sort of a coup, whichever political side they're from, and potentially they could win in a very small, critical arena, like storming the Capitol. They might take over the Capitol, and just because they hold the Capitol doesn't mean that they control you. And so there could be some sort of a civil war type of a thing that emerges where you might find it useful to have weapons. So yes, liberals and conservatives, everybody should be able to be dangerous and to defend their what they think is morally defensible and what is willing to fight and die for. Statements like this are just somebody trying to take away your danger from you. But here's the thing. If I have a CNC machine, a lathe, and a 3D printer, you can't take my danger away from me, because I understand how firearms work to a fine enough degree, and I have the ability to draw in CAD, which then allows me to take those CAD drawings and use the aforementioned machines to produce high quality firearms. You can't stop me, and I'll be doing it behind closed doors where you won't even know what I'm up to. Unless you're going to lock me in prison just because I have this knowledge, you can't take my danger away from me. If I was really pressed, I could make a firearm with a hand drill. Now, it might be challenging for me to procure ammunition for my firearm. That's a tougher egg to crack, but I'm still a dangerous man because of my mind, because of what I'm capable of doing. And nowhere in all of media has this ever been better exemplified than in the children's movie, the cartoon, How to Train Your Dragon.
No one has ever killed a Night Fury. That's why I'm gonna be the first.
Yeah, I know. Be right back. Oh, I hit it. Yes, I hit it!
There you have it, a small stature man living in a tribe of very large and brutish man who does something that none of them can do by creating a weapon from his mind, right? That's the perfect exemplification of what I'm talking about. If you've watched the movies, you know that Hiccup here becomes the leader of his village, of his tribe. And it's because of his genius at weapon creation and other inventive pursuits. The problem is that How to Train Your Dragon is a cartoon. It's not real life. And in real life, the guys with the skills to make fantastic firearms, the guys with the mental acuity to design the clockwork and to understand the forces going through a firearm in order to make the great weapons that we have today, they unfortunately tended to become merchants of death. And there's another movie all about this, one of the greatest movies of all time. Seriously, if you haven't seen Lord of War, what's wrong with you?
The Glock is interesting. It's made of a polymer composite. Many of my clients feel they can get through airport security without seeing off a lot of bells and whistles. Personally, I do not recommend that. On the other hand, if you are looking for a traditional wheel gun, there is no substitute for the 6 inches of muzzle energy of the .357 Magnum. And of course, it will never jam. Why'd you do that?
So you guys got to watch the movie to see the rest of this. But that scene is pivotal because it shows exactly what the guy that Nicolas Cage is selling weapons to is going to do with those weapons. He's going to kill people, probably for no good reason. And he would not have had the power, the danger in his person to murder had Nicolas Cage's character not provided the weapons to him. Now, Lord of War speaks to me at a very deep level because when I was in 4th grade, I hope I can be forgiven for what I did when I was in 4th grade. I was not a bad kid per se, but I was flirting with the ideas, and I raided the supply closet. The teachers forgot to lock it, and I raided it. And I stole a bunch of paper clips, a bunch of pencils, and a bunch of rubber bands, and some binder clips. And what I was able to make out of those objects, oh yeah, and a bunch of tape as well. And I was able to make a crossbow. So I sharpened the pencils into a nice sharp point. The rubber bands, I put a little tape cradle where the eraser of the pencil would sit into it, and the binder clip would pinch the eraser so that when you push down on the binder clip, it would release the pencil and it would go flying and it could stick into the wall. Like these crossbows I was making weren't weak by any means. So I made these weapons because I could. Because I was creative and I was a curious preteen, and there was a book in the library called The Weapons of History, maces and swords and shields and all these things, and I was like a lot of boys, and I was just attracted to the violence of weapons and what they can do, and I wanted to make this thing. But now that I had it, what do I do with it? I sold it. I made $5. I sold it to a guy named Mike. Now, Mike was one of those sort of chaotic neutral types. Not evil, but not good, and definitely chaos incarnate. In later years, in high school, he would stand on the stairwell facing the quad where everybody eating their lunch could see him, and he would pull his pants down around his ankles, put his hands in the air, and scream so that everybody would look. I think he only did that once. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he ended up in prison, and I gave this guy a crossbow in 4th grade. Something that he was incapable of building himself. What did he do with it? He shot it at a girl. I don't know why he shot it at her. I don't think he was mad at her. I think he was just curious what would happen. And thankfully, on that shot, the pencil turned sideways and it did not stick into her skin like it absolutely could have. And she was able to tell the teacher, and the weapon got confiscated. And yeah, I didn't have any blood on my hands, so to speak, but I came that close. And if that girl had gotten hurt, there's no doubt in my mind they would have asked and figured out that I was the one who made the crossbow, and I would have gotten in trouble for somebody else's lack of morality, for somebody else's bad actions, and rightfully so. I was culpable in that situation. So if you've watched this video to this point, chances are pretty good you saw, link in the description, the video where I was being interviewed, or I guess arguing or debating with the 3D print general about patents and if they belong in 3D printing. To oversimplify my stance on that issue, basically, it goes back to the individual. We need to encourage individuals, weirdos, misfits, to be the best that they can be in whatever they choose to be good at. I didn't have the option to be the best boxer because I was not physically imposing enough for that job. But I have found a niche and I have honed my abilities in that niche. The guy who I sold the crossbow to also was a misfit of a different type. He was more physically imposing than I am, and I have no idea what happened to him since he pulled his pants down on the quad, but I suspect he was not a benefit to society, more of a hindrance to those around him. So in our society, we need to create a space where misfits can flourish and become the best they can be, but we also need to somehow be able to keep the ones with bad intentions from being able to have any power to enact their intentions. And for this reason, there's a bargain as old as society itself that individuals make with their society, and that is that they grant their government a monopoly on violence. I am allowed to be dangerous. I am allowed to have firearms, but the second that I use them, even if it's in self-defense, I'm going to be taken away in handcuffs, and a jury of my peers is going to decide whether or not what I did was indeed self-defense, or if I am a bad actor. I'm perfectly okay with the status quo in this regard. I joined the Navy in my 20s, so I got to be a part of the government's violence system, right? The military exists to kill people from other countries. That's the purpose. So if you are attracted to violence, I encourage you to join the military. That's where you get to go play with violence and see the results of a group that is fixated on violence and whose sole existence, whose sole reason for existence is to be powerful and to be able to enact violence upon foreigners. So what's the bottom line here? What am I trying to say? It's super messed up that liberals, victims, have grouped together a group of ineffectual people who think they have no power and think victimhood makes them virtuous, have banded together, and they think they come from a superior moral place and they're justified to remove your power from you, to make it so that you are not allowed to have something like this. I disagree with this notion to the core of my being. But just because these guys exist and they are wrong does not give me an excuse to also be wrong. And it would be wrong for me to supply guns to people who intend to do bad things with them. If I were to post the STL files for the firearm that I've created in combination with the videos that I've made, the many videos here on my channel teaching people how to make 3D printers and use 3D printers, I will have made it very easy, extremely approachable for somebody with bad intentions to print a ghost gun, to make a weapon that perhaps they're a felon and they are not allowed to have weapons, and now they have skirted the government's monopoly on violence. They've gotten their hands on a weapon and they can do the evil, the bad that they intend to do. I don't want that on my conscience. I exist to make the world a better place than it would have been without my existence. That being said, I would teach people how to make guns by teaching them how to draw in CAD, by talking about all of the ins and outs of the ejection system or the gas recoil mechanism or any of that kind of stuff, right? Stuff that I myself am maybe a little bit fuzzy on and I can learn from you guys. So the engineering discussion, the CAD skills, all of that stuff, let's talk about it. Let's teach other makers how to be dangerous, how to make a gun from scratch. Because in my experience, people with the patience and the desire to be upper echelon engineers, whether or not they're credentialed, those types of people are not the type of people who are going to go on a killing rampage or who are criminal minded. But very few people share a common experience to me with selling a kid a crossbow in 4th grade. So I don't know that a lot of you have given thought to what's going to be done with your creation once you no longer have control of it. So it's the knowledge. It's the making you a dangerous person. I want you, the engineer who's watching this video, to be dangerous because of what you can do, not because of the files that you spread on the internet for anybody that you don't know who to get their hands on. That's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave some good comments. I think that we're going to be civil. I've seen no indication from this group of people that I'm going to receive the type of hate I've received for insulting a certain 3D printer company. You guys are supposed to be the bad guys in the world, and yet you're extremely well behaved, and I appreciate you. So I will see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.